Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Thinker's Cauldron and to our series The Life of the Last Messenger of Islam Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And today is our third lecture in this course, and we're going to talk about a little more in detail about the aspects of Arabia that existed in 571 AD. So we're going to take a sneak peek into the family structure and get an understanding of how families lived at that time, compared to the time right now. And then we're going to actually talk about the religions that existed in Arabia at that time. With this will give you a sense of the religious notions and the religious loyalties that existed for the people at that time, which will give you a much more better perspective of when Hazrat Muhammad started preaching, what were the religious constraints and the opposition that he received when he started his mission. So before moving on to today's content, I would like to remind everyone who's new to the channel or new to this course that they should go and watch this from the start if they want to have a good understanding. The link for the first video of the playlist should be somewhere right now, at the top. Alright, so thank you for everyone who has been supporting me for the past week. Your feedback has been very heartfelt, and I've received a lot of good feedback and a lot of support from a lot of good people at work, in my family, relatives, and even from people and friends who I have not talked to for a long time. So your support is what makes me continue with the videos that I'm making. So I consider this like a service for anyone who wants to understand and get into this biography. And my mission with this biography again is that I want to give an authentic case study for the life of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and I would like to appreciate this to be in a form of discussion where you guys can think for yourselves. The major or most important part of understanding anything related to belief, religion, or history in general is that you question stuff and then you try to get the best understanding of what is what you observe and what you discover from different sources. So in the last video, if you guys remember, we talked about nomadic people. That the people living in Arabia in 571 AD were nomads. And we discussed that the nomadic people, since there was a lack of water and food, because Arabia was a desert, they used to move from place to place and did not have a permanent home because they had to move so much in order to find food and water. And food and water was found in places called oases, and these were places that had water, and they would, make their nomadic settlements around it and grow crops and feed their animals, and this would take care of their food and water needs, right? So there's another little concept that I'll start, today's lecture with, and that is a tribe, right? So the nomadic settlements and the nomads living in one settlement, right, a collection of tents or nomadic tents, was called a tribe. And a tribe isn't just, people living together. It has a certain specific, image to it. And the people living in a tribe had some commonalities. And the thing was that a tribe was a society or a group of people consisting of families, right? So blood related families that live together due to cultural, social, or religious reasons. So let's get this into detail, right? So since we're talking about families, it is pretty much obvious to say that families have a common ancestor, right? You are a family because you have a common ancestor. You have a same person at the head or maybe at one of the heads of your family tree. This is how you're related with blood, right? So for example, my dad and his brothers and his sisters and all the children of the brothers and sisters and me are part of the same family because we have the same grandfather, for example, right? So since we have the same common ancestry or the same common family tree ancestry line, we are part of the same tribe. And since we're part of the same family, we live part of the same house, we are born in the same area or house, right? So I'm not talking about, that children are born in the same house. Sometimes, you may change houses and all that, but they live in the same house. They live with each other. They're raised up in a certain way. They're raised up together, fed together, clothed together, taught together, and all those things, right? So the first 18 or 20 or 25 years of their life are spent in the same circumstances or similar circumstances to all the other people in that house. And this is true for all families, even for families that exist today. And obviously, since if you're part of the same house and you have the same parents or the common ancestor, it is going to be 90% the case that you are going to have, all of you, the people in the tribe are going to have, or people in the family are going to have the same religion, right? So if your grandfather is a Muslim, it is pretty much safe to assume that all of you are Muslim as well. So, born Muslim, for example. So it may depend that, some people might have converted, or some people might have, might not be practicing Muslims. But if you're born in the same house of the Muslim, it's safe to say that all of you are Muslim, right? And the same goes for anyone born in the house of a Christian, or born in the house of a Jew, or any other religion, right? And with relation to family members, a part of a tribe is all the people, like we discussed, blood relatives, right? But there was another way to become part of the tribe, and that was through marriage or adoption. So if, for example, a woman got married to someone in another tribe, she became part of the tribe of the person she married to. Now she's part of her husband's tribe. And a tribe was something that was taken with a lot of pride, So it's the same way you take pride in your country, or you take pride in your state or city or province. People used to take pride in their tribe. They took pride that they were associated to that tribe, right? They would make sacrifices. They would, have their own flags for the tribe, and they had their own heroes, and they had this sort of group feeling, or this sort of not nationalist but tribalism sort of sense that we are part of the same tribe and we're going to represent that tribe in the best way possible. So just to illustrate how a tribe may look like in today's world, is that this is, for example, a neighborhood, and you are probably living right here and your neighbor is living right here. But in that time, this neighbor would be part of your family, right? Because you are part of the same tribe, you live closer to each other, and instead of living in houses, you're going to be living in tents, because you're nomads in Arabia in 571 AD. So there's not much an idea of a permanent stone or brick house, right? So this is probably the house of your uncle or your aunt, and the same goes with all the other people, right? So tribes used to live together, because for the tribal people, it wasn't about fancy living or where you live. Like people now want to live in certain places, high-end towns or upscale towns, and there are so many opportunities. People move for their jobs, people move for facilities, travel is much more easier. But at that time, tribal life or nomadic life was all about sustainability and survival, and it was considered much more safer, much more productive, and much more easier to live with people you were born with, to live with your cousins, to live with your family, right? You took care of each other, you shared responsibilities, and the whole tribe functioned as a big, large family. So just imagine the neighborhood. Instead of all the houses, just imagine it as a form of tent, right? There's a large family tent, and you live with your family, mom, dad, kids, and maybe grandparents in one house, and then you have the other family in the next, and the other family in the next. And this collection of nomadic houses or nomadic tents became part of a neighborhood, which was also part of the tribe. So just to illustrate in the form of an Arabic sense, or so that you can get a good image, or a good illustration, is that this is what a tribe may have looked like, enjoying their afternoon, right? You have tents right here, up right here, and then you have the animals right here that are being herded on their pastures. So the people in the tribe who were responsible for taking care of the animals would take care of the animals, make sure that they were fed, and had lots of water to drink from the oasis nearby. And then these people who had other responsibilities, and right now in this picture they're probably relaxing and chilling, they're having some sort of important discussion, but they're sitting under the shade of the tree and doing their day-to-day stuff. So it's like this sort of community which breeds and lives together and survives together, and it's part of a big family gathering. This is an interesting image that I found on the internet. This is actually a oil painting or something, and this is what the city of Mecca, or a typical city in Arabia, would have looked like. This is specifically Mecca because we have the Holy Kaaba, but this is how majority of other cities would have looked like, except for the Kaaba. A low wall to mark the city, then some mountains and hills in the area, because Arabia was a hilly, mountainous area, and these houses, or collection of houses and shops and all that, made of mud, right? And this was a simple Arabic city at that time. Alright, let's talk about something very important, and that is religion. The religion that existed in Arabia. So in 571 AD, or at the start of the Middle Ages, the Arabs were pagan. The majority of the Arabs were pagan. And for those of you not familiar with the term, paganism is a form of religion in which people believe in several gods or deities or goddesses made of rock, wood, and other things, right? So the depiction of these gods are done through these statues made of raw materials like wood and stone, right? So this is the first or major religion that existed in Arabia at that time. And likewise, other religions in Arabia at that time were Judaism and Christianity, right? So a lot of you are familiar with Judaism and Christianity, but we'll get to the idea of Judaism and Christianity according to Islamic belief, right? So we'll not delve deep into that, but talk about it, in the light of Islamic belief. So, but the religion that is significant for us is Deen Ibrahim, or the religion or the Deen of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim, or Abraham, according to the Bible, was a messenger or prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we say Deen Ibrahim, it means in the sense that the religion that was followed by Ibrahim, So that would inadvertently mean the God that was worshipped by Ibrahim as well. So that is Allah, right? So the religion or the instructions or whatever, instructions of Allah that had arrived in the form of a religion or in form of religious instructions to Deen Ibrahim, that was a separate religion, right? The followers of that religion were different. They had not forgotten about those instructions, and they knew about the holy books that existed before. They knew about the Torah and the Injil. They just did not go towards paganism or other religions. And we'll talk about Deen Ibrahim significantly further on. Right. So, talking about paganism, let's see a few interesting examples of paganism. So these two images are images of two mythological or pagan gods, right? So the one on the left right here is Thor, god of thunder and lightning, right? So you may recognize Thor from the Marvel films, or from the Marvel comics, or any sort of game or thing you may have played. Some people might even recognize him from God of War. Thor is actually an actual god that was, so like, not an actual god, in what I mean is that it is an actual deity that was worshipped by people, right? There were people that existed that considered Thor to be a god and worshipped him. And those people were the Norse or the Vikings. People or the Viking people were actually from Scandinavia, which includes Norway, Finland, Iceland, and Greenland and all these other regions, up in the north. So, according to Norse or Viking belief, Thor was the god that was responsible for thunder and lightning that had occurred. That occurred every day. And the other pagan god was Loki, right? So Loki and Thor were actually brothers or stepbrothers. And so Loki is a god that is considered to be the god of trickery. He was literally called Loki the trickster. And you may not recognize Loki from this image because, the images that are depicted in popular culture, like, the Marvel films, for example, or any other way you may have seen it, is usually this shabby but sharp and, a person with deceiving looks. But Loki was actually this god that the people did not like because he was responsible for tricking people into their own stupidity. And he was considered a god that tricked the other gods as well. Alright, so there's a certain idea that I would like to bring forward according to paganism and pagan gods and all that, and I'm aware that there are still people who are associated with the pagan gods and that they are Wiccan and worship these gods. So my idea is never to offend any people of any religion, right? So this channel and my discussion overall would be in the sense of having a thoughtful, productive discussion, right? So the idea that is usually depicted with how these gods were formed, or the ideas of these gods were formed in popular belief right now, and this is just a statement of opinion, and there's actually no way to prove it, but it is a result of the study of different psychological entities and people of and the idea that God is man-made or God is result of our thought process. This is just a small insight into that. So to see this in a sort of easier way, it's like, imagine you are a human being from 1000 or 2000 years ago, right? You're a human being who lives 2000 years ago, and you don't know what science is, you don't know how things occur, you don't know how the rain forms, how the clouds form, and why does lightning occur, right? And you may have the idea that these things are caused through Mother Nature, or maybe from a grand designer, or which some of you might say God. So, but still, there are going to be different ideas of who that person or who that grand designer is going to be, right? So for us Muslims, in Islamic thought, we know that all of the physics and all of the chemistry and all of the phenomenon of human nature, or Mother Nature, is caused and designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We realize that lightning is formed because of the movement of clouds, and the amount of nitrogen that is produced in the clouds, and why the clouds rumble, and why the rain is caused, and the whole process of evaporation of the water. And we believe that this process that science has explained to us is designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that is Muslim belief, right? So something, and let's take the example of Thor, is like, let's get back to the idea that you're this person who lived 2000 of years ago, and the idea that lightning or thunder, something as frightening and something as outerworldly, because if you look at it from a fresh perspective, lightning is something that all of us have experienced and all of us have grown with. Lightning isn't something new for us. But if you look at it from a new perspective, there isn't anything on earth that is similar to lightning, right? you have this beam of white light that creates this trembling sound, and you can see a flash, and you may think of this something as supernatural. So and the idea that I'm going to give you is not a complete idea that was came into the mind of one person. The idea with these pagan gods are ideas that were formed slowly, in a long process. Details were added, and then we had this whole shape of this pagan god and the functionalities and the responsibilities of that god. So some sort of thought process that might have happened is that maybe there's a person in the sky who causes that lightning, right? And then they had to give this person a sort of like an image. And the reason they gave him a muscular and this, powerful image is that only something powerful or someone powerful can cause something trembling and terrible as lightning and thunder. And since, our human imagination is limited to what we have seen, imagination is the result of all the observations that we have seen or read or witnessed, right? So Thor and Loki are created in the image of man. So if you look at it, Thor is actually a very strong Viking warrior, right? He has the braids, he has the crown, he has the long hair, he has his muscled body, and since he possesses the power of lightning and thunder, he is going to be strong like this. And this is the result of the idea that the god Thor is like this, right? He is strong, he is big, and he causes lightning and thunder in the sky. And then they had to attach a reason to it. So why does he do that? And this is, an idea which may be, made by one person, or which may be made by a result of the thoughts of multiple people. And stories, this is the flow of stories. There's a story, there's an idea or concept, and people add to that idea or concept, and then it passes on from generation to generation, and that idea takes a much more detailed shape. So the idea with Thor is that he is the strong Viking warrior who moves through the sky by revolving or shaking his hammer, and that hammer, the shaking of that hammer, causes the thunder and lightning. So this is something that I find very interesting, is that a person sees something happening and he tries to attach reason to it, right? So they see the thunder and lightning and they realize that since everything around in the world happens because of some reason, there must be a reason for thunder and lightning as well. But they're not sophisticated enough or learned enough or advanced enough to realize how physics and science does that, but they are imaginative enough to form this idea of this god or deity. And the same happens with Loki. Why do people trick others? And Loki is the reason or the blame or the association of why some people trick some other people, or why some people are tricked by nature, right? So the idea with Thor, for example, is that he is a good god and he looks out for the people. But if Thor does something wrong, they associate that Loki must have tricked Thor. And this is something similar to the idea of Shaitan or Satan too, is that Satan is someone, or Shaitan is someone, who puts bad ideas or puts trickery into our mind and makes even normal or good people do bad things. And that was the case with Loki as well. It's a way of saying that if a good person or if a sane person does something bad, it must have been the influence of Loki. And this is something which I find very, very fascinating about human thought, of how we associate reason to stuff and then feed that reason with our imagination. And this is something I'd like you guys to ponder at yourself. So this is an exercise that you can do. Maybe you can look at other pagan gods and deities and look at how people perceive their ideas and their functionalities, and how might people have come up with the idea of these gods. And there are so many of them. And this is a pattern which is so perfect and so unique in the sense that it shows the majesty of human thought. And this makes me awe at human thought, that these ideas are reflected in Egyptian and Greek mythology as well. The Greeks have gods for every sort of aspect as well. Venus, the goddess of beauty and love. Mars, the god of war, right? Then there's Neptune. Then there's Zeus, the All-Father. And the Norse have an All-Father as well, Odin, the all-seeing god. So this is something that is common in every religion and culture. And this is something very fascinating to be studied. And this is something that makes paganism or these Wiccan gods so interesting. So this is just a small thought that I leave you guys with, and I would suggest you guys to give this a little more thought. And this will be it from me today, the end of our third lecture. So if you guys have any questions, anything you'd like to talk about, any feedback on this video or series, please do comment, like this video, share your views, share it with other people that you would like to have a discussion with, or share this with other people you would like people to learn this, right? I often forget, and I've forgotten the past 2 times, is that I'll put a link in the description down as well, but you'll probably see that there will be a link for the playlist and the latest video in just about right about now. So thank you again guys for having me. Allah Hafiz, and I'll see you soon in the next video in the series.